Hey, hello everyone. Welcome to my Positive Life Answers podcast. Welcome to my second podcast episode. I'm so excited. Today we're going to talk about Secrets of Changing Your Life Part 2. I'm your podcast host and expert, Dr. Ann Mercer, and you can call me Dr. Mary. In my Positive Life Answers podcast, my goal is to help you transform the quality of your life and help you create the life you desire. The goal of my podcast, again, is to help you make improvements or changes in your life in practical ways. When you face a problem, solutions don't always come easy. So when you can't find solutions to your problems or ways to cope or improve your life, I can guide and help you. I'm offering you solution-focused, effective system and tools to create the life you desire. You'll learn practical and long-lasting approaches to guide you to live a happier and fulfilling life. In today's podcast, we will explore the secrets to changing your life. I want to thank everyone for their support since releasing my 2 trailer or preview episodes and my first episode last week. If you haven't listened to Secrets of Changing Your Life Part 1, please do so as soon as you can, because then you can get started more easily. But don't worry if you can't, you can pick it up on this podcast episode. So please continue to enjoy my podcast and don't keep me a secret. Feel free to share my podcast with anyone who you feel can benefit from these topics. Thank you for your emails and questions. This is what this space is all about, which is about helping you. So please don't be shy to message me through my website, positivelifeanswers.com, and send me your messages via the Contact Us form. Today in Secrets to Changing Your Life, you will discover the Victoria story, and you'll discover the lessons learned from the Victoria story. We will have a follow-up exercise to build on your heartfelt questions that we touched upon, and we'll remind you of today. And you'll get an intro into optimism habits that you can start developing right now. It's as easy as that. First, let me tell you a story about someone I know. Her name is Victoria. Throughout her life, people continually called Victoria names. As a baby, she fell down the flight of stairs into the basement and was injured. Physicians told Victoria's parents that she was slightly damaged. Throughout grammar school, Victoria had difficulty with academics and learning. Victoria's teachers called her parents and told them she was, quote, slow, end of quote. Imagine being told that. The teachers even put Victoria in a, quote, slow learning group, end of quote. Victoria felt embarrassed and humiliated, and she also fell behind academically throughout grammar school. In high school, Victoria had difficulty with academics as well. Starting freshman year, she began to hang around popular students who were also troublemakers. Her teachers called her parents one day and said Victoria was troubled and delinquent. Victoria would hang around what she thought was cool students, but it contributed to her getting into more trouble. In her senior year of high school, Victoria met a teacher who somehow felt the potential in Victoria and helped her become interested in learning. This teacher was so supportive and took time to connect with Victoria. And she gave her some creative assignments at first and gradually some more challenging ones. They often would talk after class or after school about these assignments. This created a very trusting and supportive relationship that really lit a fire into Victoria. Victoria became excited about the assignments given to her and worked hard on them. She and her teacher were proud of her work. Her teacher was an optimistic role model and encouraged her greatly. Soon, because of this experience she had with her teacher, Victoria decided she wanted to go to college. However, when she met with her guidance counselor, the counselor exclaimed to her, "You're not college material, and with your grades, student ranking, and behavior, no four-year college will accept you." Victoria's heart sunk, and she quickly left her office in tears. To this day, quite a few years later, people still call Victoria names. Today, they continually call her Dr. Ann Victoria Mercer. This is me, your podcast host. Are you surprised? What are the lessons learned from the Victoria story, and how did I overcome such challenges? The key is that even with all these obstacles and difficulties, I remained an optimistic person deep in my heart, and I had an exciting dream for my life. I often dreamed of a better life than what my parents and my grandparents experienced. Don't get me wrong, they were wonderful grandparents and parents who worked hard but struggled financially. And they had what we now understand as a lack mentality regarding money. However, deep in their hearts, they wanted their children and grandchildren to have a better life. I always will appreciate their love and loving home environment they created. So, often I dreamed of a better life. I was optimistic and a dreamer, and that's what most people observed of me. Let my story be a role model for you to learn how to overcome obstacles. Then, as you succeed, you can be a role model, an optimistic role model for your friends, family, and coworkers. As you show people how you succeed using an optimistic can-do approach, you can help yourself and help others. Remember that if you have children, they're watching how you handle difficulties and problems. It takes little effort to drag your feet in life and be plagued to yourself and those around you. A truly exceptional person serves as a role model for those around them, and they make those efforts greatly. I truly felt my purpose in life was to make an impact on others and inspire others to create the life they dreamed about, just like Victoria did. So overall, my goal for listeners and readers of my books, actually, and those that I work with, is to transform the quality of your life and help you create the life you desire. This became my tagline on my self-improvement website, articles, podcasts, and coaching sessions. Deep in my heart, even in my high school years, I felt a calling to help people. In college, I met my first mentor, Dr. Stan Martindale. I worked as his research assistant at a local university. And by the way, as you recall in my Victoria story, that I could not get into a four-year college because of high school problems and difficulties. I got into this university first by going to a local junior college and proving myself. Coming off my senior year of mentoring from my teacher, as you recall, awakened my desire to make a good life for myself, and learning and going to college became my dream. At the junior college, I worked hard to accomplish good grades and erase the lack of academic unachievements in my first 3 years of high school. After about a year and a half of working hard and keeping an eye on my vision for my life, boom, magic happened. I was accepted to Northeastern University. At Northeastern University, I met my mentor, Dr. Stan Martindale. He made a great impact on my life, guided me to successfully reaching my vision and goals in my life and career. My brother, Joseph Triani, encouraged, influenced, and guided me on my career path in many aspects of my life. They both had greatly helped me in the early path of my life. Years later, I met my second mentor, Dr. Carl Wolf. Dr. Carl came into my life at an important time in my life. We'll talk about his teachings later in these podcasts. I've accomplished a lot in my life, and I'm not bragging, but I'm trying to impress upon you that my strategies and techniques work despite obstacles and setbacks you might encounter. Sharing my stories today as we meet in this podcast space will give you insights and put into life by example and illustrations of how my teachings work. It will make it easier to understand these strategies for change and improvements in your life. Now let's focus on some follow-up exercise to build upon your heartfelt questions that we initially explored last time. A real secret for changing your life is to pinpoint precisely what you want. In our first podcast session, I asked you to reflect, to take some time to work on some heartfelt questions and visualizations about your life. Doing this today and last week will help you further evaluate precisely what you want and desire. Doing so will lead you to establishing goals that you'll feel excited about pursuing. And just briefly, because repetition is the mother of learning, in my first podcast, I asked you to reflect and take some time to work on some heartfelt questions following some visualization exercise. This will help you further evaluate precisely what you want or desire in your life. Doing so will lead you to establish your goals that you'll feel excited about pursuing. And briefly, one of those top questions was, imagine or picture what you want to have in your life right now. What would you like to improve? What would you like to change? That was your first question. Just want to remind you of that right now. Another question, question 2, was to imagine how you would feel in 5 years if you still didn't bring into your life what you want, what you must have or improve, and change upon. What feelings does that bring up in you? Today, I want to introduce you to a couple more heartfelt questions as we move along in finding what you desire in life. I want you to ask yourself, number 3, ask yourself why I have not already accomplished these before. A lot of people, when we do coaching sessions, they say, well, I never thought about that before. Never thought about wanting these improvements before. Never worked enough on these desires. Felt afraid to do things differently. They held on also to their excuses or agony anchors, or felt that they lacked the knowledge or skills to do these kind of changes. So those are important, the agony anchors that kind of hold people back. So see what happens for you when you ask yourself those questions. Question 4, ask yourself, what is ultra important to me? What really matters to me? The reason we include these questions in our intensive coaching sessions that I co-created with my co-author, Dr. Michael Mercer, is that we found some people, when they answer these questions, they felt like they were hit like a bolt of lightning. Ask yourself, what's ultra important to me? What really matters? This is an important question to include in your reflection, because sometimes what's really ultra important to you or matters to you most may not be in line with your goals. Found some people feel like they were hit like a bolt of lightning when they ask themselves these questions. What they answered is ultra important to them. However, for example, what they answered is ultra important to them is not consistent with their most desired actions and achievements. For example, a woman I coached wanted to expand her business and felt that that was really her top desire. However, after she answered the question, she felt really startled. She discovered that to pursue building her business would take her away from spending time with her family and children. What most mattered to her was to provide her children with guidance and time. Thus, she had two competing desires and priorities, and that kept her stuck. Her solution, using the optimism techniques, she slowly built her business 50% of the time, and sometimes 40% of the time. But she did spend 50% of the time at least with her children and 50% of their time working on this business she wanted. The solution worked perfectly for her. Her balance of time and attention gave her more energy to focus on building her business because she released the agony anchor of guilt that she allowed to hold her back. Now let's focus on a follow-up question and exercise. This is what I want you to do today. The question I have for you is to imagine everything you did in your last week. Picture all the activities you engaged in. And please answer this question honestly. How much of your weekly activities actually helped you move closer to achieving what you desire in your life? If you're like most people, you probably spent less than 40-50% of your time taking action and directly taking action to help you achieve your vision and goals and what you desire in your life. This pops up all the time in workshops I deliver and intensive coaching sessions I do with clients. The average person wanders through life doing whatever needs attention at the moment. They lose perspective and what truly is important to them. Average people do what pops up rather than what really matters most. They are like ships sailing with their radars off. It reminds me of the quote from Alice in Wonderland. If you don't know where you're going, any old place will do. After you finish these questions, please try to write them down if you can and spend some time reflecting even more. These questions and reflections help you become more focused in your life, optimistic and resilient. We'll first talk about optimistic people. Optimistic people, how I defined it, as an optimistic person possesses a clear vision of an exciting, meaningful life. They work on goals to help progress toward their visions and what they picture for their life. They have a can-do attitude. They exert personal control over his or her life, even when obstacles and problems pop up, and they take high levels of responsibility for your life, or their lives, I should say. And they live a prosperous life in many ways as a result. Many motivational books preach to you that you must display positive attitudes, and that's fine, and that's what I'm teaching here as well. But it's not the total solution. They seldom prove to you that these techniques work. Motivational speakers and books preach to you that you must display positive attitudes. However, they seldom prove to you that their techniques work. In my experience as a psychologist and researcher, plus other people's research studies show you that optimism can positively affect many areas of their lives and actually is easy to learn. How would you benefit from becoming more optimistic? Research I conducted with my co-author, Dr. Michael Mercer, discovered 3 main benefits from being optimistic. Specifically, being optimistic can help you become more healthy, prosperous, and happy. And then while some people are more naturally optimistic, it still is a skill that you can learn as well, and it's not hard. While some people are more naturally optimistic, it is a skill you can learn. Here's an easy way to start, and please just practice this immediately on a daily basis. The key is, are you ready for this? The ultimate key is, and the most important bit of information for you to feel optimistic is this important rule. Pessimistic, depressed people focus on complaining. Optimistic, happy people focus on solving. So again, upbeat, happy, and optimistic person focus on solving their problems. Pessimistic, depressed, helpless people focus on complaining. It's really that simple. People have come to me for intensive life coaching, usually walk into my office complaining, moaning, and groaning. And within 2 minutes, I usually say something like, I know that situation is difficult for you, but what's your possible solution? And they typically say, I don't know. Then I ask them a second time, and they respond, I really don't know. Finally, I ask them a third time, and they slowly and more seriously say, Dr. Mary, I don't know. After that, I give them what I call the rule of 3, which means you can only say I don't know 3 times in a session. They look at me in shock at first, and then they smile or laugh because they said, no one ever said that to me before when I was looking for help or guidance. That really makes sense to me. This immediately breaks their helpless IDK, I don't know pattern. As a result, they dramatically redirect their energy on solving a problem rather than complaining or acting helpless about it. Suddenly, tough problems or challenges become more approachable and solvable. And I guarantee you can do the same. Next time you focus on complaining, stop yourself in your tracks. Say to yourself, what's my possible solution? And watch for your IDK response. Doing this simple thing will help you on your road to becoming more optimistic. For example, you can focus on complaining, or you can focus on solutions. You can focus on drawbacks, or you can focus on opportunities. You can feel tense, or you can feel confident that you'll be able to figure out what to do. So remember, you can focus on complaining or solving, drawbacks or opportunities. Remember, ask yourself these heartfelt questions we discussed today and observe your thoughts and reactions. As we gather around and meet via my podcast, you'll learn how to break through these difficulties and blocks, plus change your discouraging belief, so that you can actually create the life you desire and transform your life. I recommend you get a notebook to write down these thoughts and reactions, because the act of physically writing down your responses really anchors them in your memory and your emotions. And if you can't take that serious commitment, you can still listen to this podcast, ask yourself these heartfelt questions I pose, and that's great because your mind and unconscious might be receptive to 1 or 2 of these questions right now, and that's great. I'll get the wheels turning. When you make a commitment to get a notebook and write down your thoughts and feelings, you will make wonderful improvements in your life and will be a role model for your life. So remember, notice your attitudes this week till we meet again. Are they upsetting or upbeat? Make a note or mental note and see how many times you need to change from complaining or letting a setback hold you back and focusing on solving. Remember, no judgment. Don't judge yourself. Don't kick yourself in the butt about this. Just observe and switch your focus. So before we wrap up today, please go to my website, positivelifeanswers.com, and sign up for my free Positive Life Answers newsletter. When you sign up, you'll get a free guide called Quick Tips to become more upbeat and optimistic. While you're at my website, feel free and please email me your questions and comments using our Contact Us form on that website. I will respond to your questions and comments during my podcast. And this is what this space is all about. Let's create a wonderful domino effect together. So please don't forget to sign up for my weekly podcast. Enjoy my podcast. Don't keep me a secret. Share with somebody who can benefit from these topics. And let's create a positive domino effect in this life. A note to my listeners, this podcast aims to provide useful information to my listeners. It is published with the understanding that your host, Dr. Mercer, is not engaged in rendering professional services, counseling, or therapy through the contents of this podcast. If professional services is sought by the listener, such as counseling or psychotherapy or medical advice, then the listener is responsible for seeking services of a competent professional. Contact your local psychological association or contact your doctor for referrals. So please remember to reflect on your attitudes, whether they're upbeat or upsetting. Make a note, change from complaining to solving, and see how you start feeling this coming week. Stay tuned for more and see you next time. Positively, Dr. Mary.